father-in-law of the daughter-in-law. When Adele Slaughter phoned to invite me to the backstory on the father of the bride, I declined. I told her I was unqualified because I had no daughters that I knew of yet. You'll find your way, Adele said. Personal experience isn't necessary. No personal experience necessary. In the movie, wasn't that George Banks' problem? Having never been a bride, he couldn't empathize with how his daughter Annie felt until it was almost too late. Without a daughter for me to alienate, who would care enough to suffer the hassle of dissuading me from my machismo? What about my 3 daughters-in-law? If not for love, then for law. Were daughters-in-law my way across the tightrope to understanding something about weddings? I'd come to love each of these women because they loved my sons. At their weddings, I had played piano for one and officiated the other 2. Each time, I had a close-up perspective on the ceremony. I always watch eyes and hands. With my sons, I think I can also recognize expressions around the mouth, flaring nostrils, how the jaw is held. The vows matter, however, they vary little one couple to the next. Usually, there's something about love past, the life ahead, and how love past will get the couple through whatever's to come. According to the county recorder, my ordination from American Marriage Ministries gives me the primary responsibility of ascertaining consent. Any signs of coercion or impaired thinking, and I have the responsibility not to sign the license. So, dearly beloved, we gather together to witness the declarations of love and exchange of rings, gathering, of course, to wish them love and happiness, but also to serve as witnesses for a divorce trial in which one party or the other claims the union was forced against its will by a shotgun, impairing amounts of tequila, or some other life path landslide. My first daughter-in-law was Precious, or Pre as we called her. She married my oldest son, Jesse, after the Army sent him home on medical orders. I tried to explain to her what I'd tried to explain to his recruiting officer. Jesse had a learning disability and didn't think like the rest of us. Pre said she loved him and they would grow together. I played piano for their ceremony in a stone church with high ceilings. So I sat close to the altar, closer than the rest of the family. It was a great day for Jesse to be surrounded by so many people who loved him, and for Pre by all the people who loved her for loving him, even if the reverb from the music seemed to accentuate the distance between everyone. A couple of years later, Jesse's odd hours and the onset of bipolar disorder wore Pre out, and she sent him home. I got to talk with her once when their dog was lost. She had been my first daughter. When we found the dog, I looked forward to telling her so, but my call went to voicemail. Pre passed a couple of years later, but I'd been mourning losing her for a while. I conducted my first wedding for my second son, Keaton, and his wife, Veronica. Keaton, being in his atheist phase, wanted his born-again dad to officiate. I'd become a music leader at the local church. Couldn't I just say what I sang with all the blood and God part? Keaton had asked. You know, short on ceremony, more time for reception. So, when I stood in front of Keaton and Veronica, I searched their faces carefully as they professed their love for each other. Were there telltales I missed that should have cued me to the separation 9 years later? Their eyes remained focused on each other. Their smiles were neither strained nor few. What should I have seen? Veronica and Keaton would have children. So she and I grew closer, close enough that I put her in the poem, Sing One About the Pool's Edge. This girl, whose mother stayed in bed for 4 weeks after her mucus plug ruptured 6 months into the pregnancy, floated in the shallow amniotic pool for a month. I was the grandfather nearby when the water broke, who exceeded all speed limits on the way to the hospital. I was the grandfather who worked near the NICU, so I was close enough to visit after work, to scald my hands and reach into her isolette, so her feet could push off my finger the same way she pushed off the uterine wall, to float. A couple of summers later in the pool, she clung to my back for what she called a turtle ride. The summer after that, she could kick away from the stairs and then back. But she pinched her nose with one hand. I tell her, blow bubbles out your nose so you can swim with both hands. I tell her every day for 2 more summers, you need your hands to propel yourself. Your sinuses open to resonate in song. I want to say, I taught you to swim, now you owe me a song. Sing the one that wrecks me. The one about the bicycle without training wheels. Or the one about the dark beyond the porch lamp. Or about passing the cemetery gate. Sing, mermaid. That drive to the hospital wasn't the only one Veronica and I made. It wasn't nearly as hilarious as Father the Bride Part 2, in which, spoiler alert, Nina and Annie go into labor on the same night. I suppose our drive to the hospital was like George's drink with Brian, except I was bonding with my daughter-in-law, and we drink much later. I still think of her as my girl. At the rehearsal for my son Rafe's and his wife Natalie's wedding, as the venue host was giving instructions on how to cross the stream between the house and the meadow, Rafe took my hand, something he probably hadn't done since we were crossing some street 20 years prior. I waited for him to let go, maybe a squeeze and then a let go. So I held on, firm, not like a handshake, just present, like dancing. Everyone was pretending the 2 tallest men at the rehearsal weren't holding hands. What it meant to him, I don't believe he ever said. What it meant to me doesn't matter. The next day, I stood behind them, but up close, seeing what the other witnesses could not. I remember the 2 of them laughing and me thinking, this could turn out all right. Do you, Raphael? I asked. A wedding rehearsal, like the ceremony itself, is an act of hope. I do, Rafe said. From my spot at the altar with my son and daughter-in-law to be in the foreground, I had a long view of the wedding guests stretching down the meadow. Do you, Natalie? I asked. Maybe it was the father and mother of the bride seated together that distracted me, that directed me to glance across the aisle to my wife, seated without me. If it weren't for the contrast, I wouldn't have thought anything of the 20 feet between her and me, or that she was seated next to her mother and mine, who smiled like the grateful single mothers the 2 of them are, elated to be each other's +1. I heard myself going on about the symbolism of rings and equality when I thought, sweet St. Valentine, these people imagine I have some credibility just because I haven't been divorced. I do, Natalie answered. My imagination erased the faces of 2 wedding guests in the second row on the groom's side and pasted in the faces of my late father-in-law and his second wife. About 5 rows back, my whimsy replaced one of the bride's guests with my father. He wasn't at my wife's and my wedding. For my wedding, my mother demanded the absent father stay absent. But now that I had Dad there, I wanted to say thanks, not only for playing an essential genetic role in getting Rafe to the altar, but in setting the bar so low that I looked good by comparison, just by staying on the scene. At what point did I begin practicing presence? Having baby was good practice for me. I started early, apparently feeling the need to make up for my lack of knowledge. Father the groom, father-in-law until I'm not needed. Good God, I thought, did I say any of that out loud? It was difficult to tell because my wife was both smiling and crying. Let them kiss. Introduce them. Father the groom, father-in-law of the daughter-in-law. Fade into the background while the recessional plays, and the bride and groom walk away from us all.